You know, something that's really cool about trading is that it's fractal, which means charts are all going to be the same no matter what market it is or what time frame. So if I study a 5 minute chart, like this channel mostly covers, the understanding that you get from a 5 minute chart will be the same as a weekly chart or of a monthly chart. And this is a good example. So this is the monthly Bitcoin chart, and there's a wedge pattern that had formed on the monthly chart. And you can see I have it labeled here. 3 pushes up, first push, pull back, second push, pull back, third push, and this creates a wedge top. And I made a video at the start of the year explaining this on the monthly chart and how I thought. So, here's around the start of the year, and how I thought this was a first leg down, then we'd get a pullback at some point, and then a second leg down. And with this being a monthly chart, that means pretty much all of 2026 will be bearish, and that's what we're seeing. So now it looks like the second leg down is starting. So we'll recap. Why did I think that we were going to have this kind of price action for this year? Well, whenever you have a wedge top, which is 3 pushes in this pattern, you normally get about 10 bars sideways to down. And we'll consider this the top here after this double top. We had 5 bars down, 3 bars of a pullback, so that's 8 bars, which means we still need at least a couple bars down, and then usually a second leg. So that means looks like we're still going to have more down. Usually the second leg is somewhere near the size of the first leg, and you can see that can be problematic, because if that occurs the same way, that puts Bitcoin down around like 17,000. There, I'll move my picture. It puts Bitcoin way down here around 17,000, 20,000. That's possible. We could go that far down. I don't think that would happen like as soon as this year. And if it does go down to around 20,000, I imagine that would be the low of the next many years. So until quantum computing cracks Bitcoin, possibly one day, then if it gets down to 20,000 or 17,000, I imagine that would be the floor. But I don't think it's going to get down that far, even though we have this measured move that puts us down there. Although I do think we'll get a larger or a continued move down. And the bettors on Polymarket agree with me. So if we come down, what price will Bitcoin hit in 2026? Their odds of going below 50,000 are now up to 66%. So 66% chance Bitcoin goes below 50,000. And, I'm aligned with that. I would agree with that. And if you're looking at the 45,000, the odds it'll go below 45,000 this year, it's right at about 50%. So that's kind of the expected level. That's what the bettors on Polymarket are betting that they expect the price to get down to this year. Now I want to zoom in a little bit. So I'm going to keep the same chart. I'm just going to go down to a weekly chart. Okay, so we can see our parabolic top. It's very clear on the weekly chart as well. And suddenly our move down, it's no longer clearly one move down and a pullback and then a possible second move. Now we can see it's becoming subdivided. So that first big move down over the first half of the year, or over the last year, it's 2 parts or 3 parts instead of just one large leg down as it was on the monthly chart. So instead of all this being one leg, now we can see it kind of looks like a parabolic wedge bottom. So just like we had this move over here, which was a series of tops that led to a wedge top, it kind of looks like we're getting the same thing over here. So we have a first move, a first push down, second push down, and this third push probably hasn't finished yet. Let's just say it did, and we just drew a parabolic wedge bottom here. it's fairly visible. It's clearly, it looks kind of like the same pattern as we're getting on the other side. So I think this is how the Bitcoin bear trade is going to end up. I think we're going to go lower, down probably around 50,000, maybe lower, maybe around 40 or 30 even. And it's going to create a parabolic or a wedge, possibly it might go parabolic, but it'll definitely end up as some sort of wedge bottom. Maybe it'll head lower over the next few weeks and it'll end up somewhere down here. And it would be a very clear 3 pushes down. So do I know how low Bitcoin will go? I don't know. I do think we're going lower. I think not. I think the price action shows that we should be going lower. We're in a bear trend now. We had a reasonable topping pattern, which was this wedge top, and now we're in a bear trend, possibly setting up to have this wedge bottom. So we need to go lower for the bottom to be completed. So my premise at the start of the year is still the same. I think we're going to have a bearish end of 2026. Now, with me saying that, what is my plan? What am I doing with Bitcoin? Am I going to take a short position on Bitcoin? Well, I'm not going to just short today and just hold it till it goes down to 40,000 or, for example. I think if someone wants to take short trades while the market goes down, I think that's a good idea. It makes a lot of sense. Bitcoin's in a bear trend. So, you've done step 1, you've determined if it's in a trend or a trading range, what is the market doing? And the market's in a bear trend. And then the step 2 is you look for your trade setups. And I have all kinds of videos that go into these trade setups. And what I have in mind for this would be a fairly standard trend continuation trade. So let me go down to the daily chart and we'll see if we can find some examples. So we're on the daily chart. And the monthly chart is in a bear trend. So, it's good to know what the larger trend is doing. And let's just look at this last bear move down we had, and we'll find examples. Bear trend. Market is trying to go higher. It's making several attempts, and, it's actually doing pretty well. It even got above the 200 moving average at this point. But then it double tops. Okay. Let me zoom in more. It double tops here. It tries to go higher again with a pretty good looking bull bar, but it can't even get above that bull bar to form a buy entry, right? If we're buying, I'd rather buy above the bar. So I know that it's at least gone that far. Couldn't even get above the bar to get an entry. But they basically just sold the close. And now instead of it being able to stay above the moving averages, now it's below. And now every bull attempt is failing below the moving average. So the bull case is getting weaker and weaker here. And bulls will begin to give up on their bullish premise. So if they're buying at 80, hoping we go back up to like 100,000, well, that's not happening. It's not working out. And so they decide to exit their longs. And where did they decide to do that? I think what we've seen over the last week is where they decided to do that. They saw a double top here below the moving average. So if they had bought up here, now it's below the moving average. They tried to go higher once, tried to go higher twice, and it couldn't. And this is so common that you'll see these large moves after after charts that look like this, below the moving average, double top. And so this move down isn't just people. It's not just bears being really excited about shorting and making money on the way down. A lot of it is people on the wrong side having to exit their positions. So all the bulls that bought here, hoping that we were going to end up as a double bottom here and the market goes higher, they're all trapped during this. They had imagine their position. Imagine their mental state. They're buying and then they have several days down like this, and they know like, oh, well, if I was neutral, I'd be trying to sell here. And so that's what happens. They just get trapped. and then they have to exit, and it creates a very large, very, very quick move down. So would I short Bitcoin and just hold it for the next few months? No, I'd rather be a buyer of Bitcoin and hold it for the long term, like 5 or 10 years. But on a lower time frame chart, I absolutely think it's okay to look for bearish trades and swing trade. So an example of a short that I would be looking for, one, you want to see the bulls being trapped somewhere. So we know through here they're trying to buy, and then as market goes lower, they're going to be trapped, which could lead to some large move down like this. You also want to see a topping pattern. So here we have a double top below the moving average, and then you want to sell below a good bear bar. And I would, wherever you end up putting your stop, I would try to go for at least 2 times your risk at a minimum. So I wouldn't want to scalp, because in a market like this that is trending so strongly, the possibility for a large move is there. And if you are, especially if you can find in an area where traders are trapped, then it can very quickly go a large way in your direction. So it really changes the math in your favor if you focus on swing trading in the direction of a trend when it is trending so strongly like this. So when you have a bias that is so bearish like this, then just look for bearish trades, try to swing trade, and really just forget doing anything else. And so look for bearish trades on any of the time frames, daily, hourly, 5 minute. And with the larger bias being so bearish, then that will benefit you on any of the shorter term time frames that you're looking at. Now I'm back on the weekly chart. Let's say the market does move down very strongly, and we quickly end up somewhere down around 40,000 or 30,000. Well, just like we pointed out, that would be a parabolic wedge bottom. And once you see a wedge bottom, what would that mean? Well, you'd be looking for 10 bars and 2 legs up at a minimum. So 10 bars on the weekly chart, that would be 2.5 months. And so after you have a parabolic wedge bottom, then you could be looking for those buys instead of sells. If you can look at it and say the bears were way too eager, they sold way too strongly at the end, too many bulls exited way down here at the bottom, and if you see those large moves that go just too far down, then those can end up being some really good buy setups. So if we do see a wedge bottom on the weekly chart over the second half of the year, then you can be looking to buy, and on the lower time frame charts, instead of selling, then you'd be looking for those buy setups and trying to swing over those 10 bars and 2 legs on the way up. So if you keep an eye on your larger time frame trends, and then use that as a bias to help you out on the lower time frames. And before I go, we're back on the monthly chart, and might I remind you, look at what happened the last time we had a wedge bottom on the monthly chart. These moves play out over large time frames, and people argue what the best personality trait for a trader is. Some people say discipline. I think patience is the most important trait. And if someone can wait for the trade to come to them instead of trying to force a trade, waiting for these key areas that we're pointing out, if someone can wait for those trades to come to them, then I think they can make all the money that they want to make. Thank you for watching.